I've got you watching this video, or perhaps you're clicking on it because of the title, where I think the Lexus RX 350 is perhaps a better buy than the Mercedes-Benz GLE, the BMW X5, and maybe even the Audi Q5. Well, I'm here to tell you that I truly think so. Because in a Malaysian context at least, so if you're watching this from a different country outside Malaysia, then perhaps it may not apply to you. But in Malaysia, the Mercedes-Benz GLE costs 515,000 ringgit. The BMW X5, which is a hybrid model, costs close to 500,000, it's about 490 plus. The Audi Q5, even though it's smaller and not in the same league, also costs 480,000 ringgit. The Lexus RX 350 though is just a nudge under 470,000 ringgit. Now I know what you're thinking, that there's a lot of Lexus RX 350s, especially the newer ones, in the grey market for a lot lesser, and you're right. Perhaps buying this might result in you losing a lot of money as soon as you step out of the showroom, simply because you can get a cheaper one with the grey importers. But the problem with that is, firstly, they're Japanese spec. Secondly, is their use. Thirdly, you do not know what you're getting. And most importantly, you will not get access to the legendary Lexus after-sales service. So, in this video, I'm going to try and convince you that the Lexus RX 350 is the better buy. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the exterior, because there are plenty of videos out there that are already explaining about the new design. In fact, we also explained the new design when we first drove this car a couple of months ago. But there's no denying that it is actually a very handsome car. The evolution of the spindle grille that now has evolved into the spindle body is basically a head turner. And this color, wow. I personally would have it in black, but because I want something more sportier, especially with these 21-inch wheels, which just look amazing. Also, I'm here to acknowledge the fact that the car is not only lighter now, it's also stiffer, and you feel it as soon as you start driving it hard, because it responds to the slightest of steering tweaks, steering inputs actually, and which just gives it a very on-point handling. Of course, the suspension is better suited for comfort. In fact, it is hugely comfortable, this car. I've just got to say that, and actually give it credit that it is more comfort-oriented than sports-oriented. But with such a sharp handling, it's just, yeah, that'll make you feel good. Trust me on that. And the other thing that I got to acknowledge over here is, again, plenty of content out there already, is that there's no longer a door handle. Instead, it's a latch. You just press, there's a button over there, you just press it, that's it. However, when I picked up my parents, who are in their 60s, yeah, a bit of a problem for them, because that generation come in and just straight, they want to pull this. However, you have to be gentle with it. You just sort of just tap it ever so gently. And then from the back here, actually nothing to actually complain about or even report. You get this light strip, which we first saw in the Lexus NX. And I just got to acknowledge, a lot of you, no big deal actually for many people, but notice how quickly the boot lid opened and closed. Some cars just take way too long. This is actually quite good. And since we are at the back here, the one car that I forgot to mention during my opening was the Lexus, what am I talking about? The Volvo X90. Also about 5 plus. But the one thing that the Volvo of course, a hybrid, and basically we are not sure how hybrid batteries are going to perform over the long term. So in my books, yeah, kind of stay away from hybrids. But the one thing that the Volvo is really bad at is a tonneau cover. Surprisingly, the tonneau cover on the Volvo is really bad. This is just so much better. And in terms of space, hugely spacious, and you get electronic controls to actually flatten the second row seats. Well, actually this is just a 5-seater, so there's no third row. But this is great, and you can put it back in place by simply pressing a button, and it's just a one touch. So you can just let it go after that. Now, the centerpiece of the Lexus RX 350 is this, the 2.4 litre turbocharged engine making 275 horsepower and 430 Newton meters of torque, 0 to 100, 7.6 seconds, top speed, 200 kilometers per hour. It's actually not very, it's not very explosive in nature. I think the Mercedes-Benz as well as the BMW, even the Volvo for that matter, as well as the Audi, feel more urgent. This is actually a lot more luxury oriented, a lot more comfort oriented. It's just rides a wave of torque as it gets to the speed that you want to, especially when you have the adaptive cruise control turned on, and if there's a car in your way and it slows down, as soon as the car gets out of the way, a lot of the systems out there in the market will immediately downshift and just accelerate until you reach that designated, that predetermined speed. In the RX 350 though, it just sort of takes its time. It's very opulent, it's very comfortable, it's not something that will overwhelm you. But that's not to mean that it's not comfortable. You can cruise at 150, 160 kilometers per hour with no dramas, and with such a refined interior, which we'll get to shortly, you hardly feel a thing, even at that speeds, which can be borderline dangerous because you never feel how fast you're going. But it is also a nod to how comfortable the Lexus RX 350 is. On that note, this is an all-wheel drive system, so it's permanently, you have all 4 wheels turning permanently, which sort of does affect fuel consumption a bit. That means it's a bit thirsty. Inside here, it's just a very nice place to be. I do think that it's a bit dark in here, it's too black, so there's nothing very luxury oriented in here until you start driving it and until you start spending more time in it. At first glance, it's just okay, you know, there's nothing that completely stands out, you know. I think the interior of the GLE, even though it's dated, looks a little bit more impressive. The X5 as well, and even the Audi. The Volvo is just too old at this point. But as compared to that, in here, you have to understand that Lexus is all about understated luxury. And it does that really well. I mean, the first thing that captures your mind, it captures your eye actually, is this 14-inch infotainment system here. It is humongous. It's huge, right? And perhaps one of the biggest infotainment systems in the industry. And that's not a bad thing. But the one thing that I do have to point out though, that the fonts can be a little bit on the smaller side. I mean, you have such a big screen, but the fonts are quite small. So it does take some getting used to. And the one thing that I do have to point out though is that even though the air conditioning settings are over here, but when you start up the car, let me just demonstrate it for you. So it's been really hot these days, right? It's unbearably hot. So the first thing that you do when you get into the car is you just want to immediately blast the aircon. I mean, I do that, I'm not sure about you. So as soon as I turn on the car, I have to wait for the air conditioning controls to be loaded. It takes about 5 seconds. Only now can I adjust the air conditioning settings. So even though the temperature can be controlled through here, but the blower settings are still digital. So that's a bit of a bummer. The volume though is just here. So that's great. I do like the balance of analog as well as digital. Having said that though, some of the key controls, let's say if you want to adjust the sound, you find that you don't have enough bass, for example, when you're driving. You cannot do this when you're driving. You do have to stop the car and then only do. I mean, I understand safety and such, but the driver doesn't have to do it. The passenger can do it, right? So yeah, not a fan. Anyway, then you do get a ventilated seats as well as heated seats. So you see, if I were to press on the top here, it gives me access to the different audio modes that I have. But if I press this button here, which is highlighted when I tap it on the steering wheel, I change it and now I can answer phone calls, use the voice command, or even change the audio tracks. Now on the right hand side of the steering wheel, this is basically the cruise control option. So I can either set the following distance to the car ahead, or the modes, driving assistant mode, adaptive cruise mode and such, cruise control mode and such. And if I press this button at the bottom here, it lets me adjust the height of the heads-up display. This is important because if you're a short driver, you need it perhaps higher up, or if you're a taller driver, you need it at the bottom, otherwise you're not going to see it, a lot of it. So that's the thing about heads-up display. I do suspect that older drivers with visual impairments might have an issue with this, which could just mean that you may not be able to enjoy the full extent of these steering wheel controls. But that's okay. Well, at least it's there. Now, as far as trimming goes, you get this black open pore ash wood over here and here, which again, I think if it was a lighter color, it will bring up the spirits of the interior. Right now it's just too understated for my liking. I do, however, like the suede finishing over here. While you're driving and you really like this car, you can just sort of just, you know, what do you call this? When you can just sort of pet the car and tell it how much you love it. That's exactly how it feels like. It's just very nice. You get suede here, you get suede at the sides over here, at the bottom here, and then you get more suede at the top here. And the stitching is beautiful. Overall, the interior is just such a nice place to be in. It's quiet, it's serene, it's well put together, and it's understated, just in a very Lexus sort of way. Only Lexus does it, and they do it beautifully. Now at the back here, wow, it's just a very nice place to be in. Again, as far as entertainment goes, you get 12 speakers. Not sure who provides the speakers because according to the specification sheet, it's called Lexus Premium Audio. But Lexus has traditionally always used Mark Levinson's, so it could be Mark Levinson, I'm not sure. Again, the back here, a combination of suede and leather. You get your own privacy screen. It's a nice place for a young family, or even a beautiful place to be driven in. What's good is that you get your own ventilation seats. So you see, these are actually ventilated and they can either be cooled or heated. You also get your Type-C USB ports, and you get your own air conditioning controls. What I think should have been better is that these air conditioning vents, it's great to have them at the bottom here, but they tend to cool your knee. There should have been one at the top over here as well. Would have just perfected this package. However, If you're the type that likes to be driven in your Lexus RX, which I know a lot of people do, you also get Boss seats. These Boss controls let you move the seat to the front, and you basically get more legroom, which makes it perfect to be driven in. So I'm doing over 60 kilometers per hour on some, well, typical Malaysian roads, let's put it that way, gently. And, well, I don't feel a thing. Hardly anything is transferred back into the cabin, and the refinement in here. Let me pick up speed. I'm now at 80. There's very little in terms of tire raw. There's very little in terms of what is happening at ground zero that is transferred back into the cabin, not only in terms of noise, but in terms of vibrations. It's different level, guys, the refinement of a Lexus. You see, a Lexus is not built, it's crafted, and you really feel it here. Now, the one thing that I really like about this is the adaptive cruise control. It's no big deal, right? Adaptive cruise control, but right now, if you see, I'm going through a corner, and though I have it set at 80 kilometers per hour, it's taking the corner at 76 kilometers per hour. It can basically detect when there are corners, and it will slow the car down. That is intelligent. But not only that, it also has your usual stop and go function. It has all the usual technologies, but slowing the car down for corner and letting you take the corner and then only accelerating it back up to the predetermined speed, that is different level. Let me put it up to 100 kilometers per hour right now. There's a corner coming up. Let's see. Yeah, I'm at 98 and 97, 96, 95, 94. So I'm straightening my steering wheel back again, and there you go. It's accelerating back up to the predetermined speed. So in that sense, I just think that the amount of technologies in this car is good, it's brilliant. But a lot of cars have good technologies, but in here, it's very driver oriented. It's designed to keep you comfortable, make your driving experience a lot better. That's what I appreciate about the Lexus RX 350. The interior, as I said, you can just keep petting it. I can drive this all day long and not get tired. But guys, I do admit that the Mercedes-Benz GLE is a very nice car to drive. I do admit that the Volvo XC90 is a very nice car to drive. I do, however, have to say that this has better seats and perhaps even better technology, more accessible technology than the Volvo. I do think that the Volvo voice assistant is also brilliant. But other than that, the Audi Q5, again, I know it's not in the same category, but in Malaysia, it's priced at 480,000, which if you're in the market, you do have to consider the Q5. The Q5 is definitely a very nice car as well. It's just that I think the Lexus is a better buy. No, if you're after power, then yeah, the Lexus RX 350 will not do it for you. But if you're after a car that drives well, feels nice to drive, is comfortable, it serenades you, this is the car that you want. If you can't already tell, I'm a fan of Lexus. I'm also a fan of great engineering, which you also find in its competitors. But great engineering is one thing. Putting it together in a beautiful interior that is as great as this, now that is not just engineering, that's craftsmanship, which Lexus and its Takumis do really well. But back towards the topic of power and performance, there's no doubt that that's where Lexus actually loses out as compared to its European competitors. The Mercedes-Benz and the BMW just offer a much more engaging driving experience. You know, they offer plenty of power and such. But of course, Lexus is not known for offering that. It has its own way of delivering power. Refinement, as I said, is the name of the game. But if you compare it towards, compare it against, for example, a Volvo, even though the Volvo accelerates better, I would argue that the air suspension on the Volvo is probably on a different level. But then again, I think when it comes to refinement, again, it's difficult to beat the Lexus. That's what the Lexus is actually meant for. Whether it's to be driven in, to drive, or even a car for your family, I just think that that does it really well. It's very understated even. Like over the weekend, picked my parents up from Ipoh, which is, for those of you who do not know, from where I live to Ipoh and back is roughly about 450 kilometers. And they're car guys, they're car people, right? They like a good-looking car, they like cars. But they knew this was a nice car, but as soon as they stepped inside, they were impressed, but they were basically underwhelmed, right? The interior is nice, no doubt about it, very well built, refinement is amazing. I know I've said refinement so many times in this video already, but it truly does it really well. And it isolates you from the drama of the world outside. I mean, we have some really noisy bikes that go around our roads and I hear nothing. But anyway, back to the topic of my parents, they were underwhelmed because the interior is basically understated. It's all about understatement. You don't want a luxury that screams and shouts. Think about a Rolls-Royce. The interior is well spec'd, well defined, well built, but it doesn't scream at you. It doesn't overwhelm you with so many buttons and, you know, especially gloss black panels. What the hell? Gloss black belongs on a piano, not in the interior of a car. And I'm really glad that Lexus understands that. That's why you do not get any of that gloss black stuff over here. You do get it around the this 14-inch screen over here, but that's part of the screen. It's not a panel. But anyway, besides that, I got nothing bad to say about this car. It's just that power is normal. It's just that handling is great. The car is stiffer than before, so any twitch of the steering wheel, it responds immediately. Besides all of that, I also do think that it can be a little bit on the thirsty side. It is, after all, an all-wheel drive car powered by a 2.4 litre turbocharged engine. So yes, it can be very thirsty. That is what you should know. Besides all of that though, it's just such a nice car. Now, a few years ago, Lexus was one of the first car makers to introduce an interior with bamboo fittings. Yes, it had bamboo trims for its Lexus LS model. Now, that is basically a testament to the extent that Lexus would go to create a wow sort of interior. But because this video actually is about the RX and how it's a better buy than the GLE, the X5 and such, so let's bring it down to that level, because even Mercedes-Benz has the Maybach. BMW is they basically own Rolls-Royce, right? the Phantom, the Ghost, it runs on the 7 Series platform anyway. So when it comes to luxury, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Lexus, even Audi and Volvo know how to create a great car with an opulent interior. But at this level, in this segment, between the GLE, between the X5, between the XC90, between the Q5 and the RX, I think the RX has a better appointed interior, simply because of the way the interior has been not only crafted but specified. The stitching is beautiful, suede leather, as I've said before, and everything just feels like it will last a very long time. I think with regards to that, the GLE, even though it has a nice interior, so does the X5, but it feels manufactured. It feels like it has just been, sort of put together, processed together. It doesn't feel like this. I'm lost for words, actually. So at this level, in this segment, the Lexus wins as far as the interior is concerned. And because you spend so much time in the interior, that's what should matter. So now you understand why I think the Lexus RX 350, especially in this luxury trim, is perhaps a better buy than all of its continental rivals. At 468,888 ringgit, I really do think it's a better buy. So the Volvo and the BMWs, well, those are hybrids. So naturally they'll have more power, better range, better efficiency. But the Lexus has a nicer interior. In fact, in my books, I think it even rides better. Mercedes-Benz GLE, I just do not like the amount of gloss black panels that the BMW, the Volvo and the Mercedes uses. It just looks too cheap. The Lexus has none of that. Gloss black is cheap and it looks horrible. It collects dust and fingerprints. I'm not sure why car makers use it. And hence why the Lexus RX 350 is, in my books, the better buy than all of its continental partners. So if you agree with me, do let me know in the comment section below. And if you do not agree with me, be gentle with your comments and do consider subscribing.